Robo World, the Blulite Rocks, has actually been in development for close to about 7 years now, I guess. To put things in perspective, Game Maker 6 was brand new when I started making the game, even though I was only working in Game Maker 5 at the time. I started making the game when I was about 10 years old, and I was a camper at iCamp. And back then the game was actually called Robo World 2, since I was simultaneously developing Robo World 1 at home. And by the end of 2 weeks at iCamp, I ended up making so much headway in Robo World 2 that I kind of didn't want to work on Robo World 1 anymore. And being 10 years old, I decided to keep working on the second game instead of doing the smart thing and stopping production on the second game and finishing up the first. But anyway, after about a year of working on Robo World 2, I finally got it to a point where I considered it finished, and I released it to the wonderful and loving internet that told me how awesome it was, that I made a game that I was only 10 years old, and no, I'm kidding, they tore it apart. So I wasn't discouraged, though. I got Game Maker 7, and I spent some more time polishing up the game, and then I finally released it to a point where I considered that I was happy with it. Much happier than I was when I released the original, that is. So by this point I was about 12 years old, and I was essentially done with the project. And after that I ended up working on Robo World 3, and that was a whole perpetual development cycle. As the years went on, I finished a couple other of those small projects, but the one thing I had consistently was my job at iCamp, so I was teaching the kids now how to make their own games instead of making my own. And I put Robo World 2 on all the computers, because that way the kids would have something to do during a rainy day when we couldn't go outside. And the kids actually gave me a lot of good feedback on the game, and I was really happy to hear it. And, you know, after so many years, I could kind of see the flaws in my own game. I mean, it was just sort of obvious that, you know, when you make a game, you're 12 years old, you're definitely going to make a better game than when you were a 10-year-old, but you're still not quite... Yeah, there's a lot of things that you can sort of leave in there that you don't really mean to, and I definitely saw a lot of that. So I wanted to fix those things, because the kids said they liked it so much that I took a look at it, and I was like, wow, I can really see that I put 2 years of effort into this, you know. There's the flaws that, yeah, but sure, but, you know, I look in and I can see all these little details that are just, you know, really evident. And I wanted to make a better game so that the kids could play it, and I feel finally happy with this game. So I reopened the project for what was supposed to be the last time, as far as I know right now, and I brought it into Game Maker 8, having last worked on it in Game Maker 7, because I'm more used to Game Maker 8, and I figured I'd iron the wrinkles out of it before I brought it to Game Maker Studio for an eventual release. And after a lot of time and effort, I finally got it to a point where I was able to export it from Game Maker 8.1, bring it into Studio, finish that whole thing up, and at that point the game had been from Game Maker 5 to Game Maker 8. It never went through Game Maker 6, but it had definitely gone through several successive iterations to the point where I've actually lost the original file. And then I dropped the 2, of course, because it no longer made sense to be calling the game Robo World 2. So that's the history of development on Robo World.